about style components. When it comes to styling the React components, there are different ways, one of which is CSS in JS, which we are going to cover in today's session. For this, we are going to make use of style components. We'll understand about style components and also about conditional style. Finally, we'll look into the advantages of using style components like unique class names, readability, and so on. So let's get started. So to set the code playground for today's session, you need to run this, then run npm install. With this, all the dependencies will get installed. Now, styling React components. So for this, there are different ways. One way is using CSS, which you have been doing so far. Another way is using CSS in JS, which we are going to learn in today's session. And there are many other ways too. Okay, coming to using CSS, you're already familiar with this, where we write the CSS in .css files and we import these files, and then wherever necessary, we provide the class name as a value to the class name attribute, right? Let's see an example for this. So here you can see we have the app component. We want to display hello world heading in this manner. Okay, for this, firstly, we have written the class. There you can see dot heading, where we have provided the CSS properties, and we have written this in the app.css file. In an external file, we have written the CSS. And then we have imported this app.css file into app.js. There you can see, right? Then we want to display the hello world heading. So for that, we have this h1. And then we want the styling to be applied. So for the class name attribute, we have provided a heading as a value to the class name attribute. You can see that there, class name equal to heading. And we were able to achieve this output, right? So I'll show you the code related to this also. So once you set the code playground for today's session, you will be able to see this initial code. So in the app.css file, we have written the styling. There you can see we have this dot heading class, right, where we have defined the CSS properties. Now, here we have imported this app.css file, right, there you can see. And then wherever necessary, we will provide the class name as a value to the class name attribute. And we were able to achieve this output, right? So that's it. This is the method that we already know, using which we can style the React components, right? So another way of styling React components is using CSS in JS, which we are going to see in today's session. So what is the CSS in JS? This is actually a styling technique where we can make use of JavaScript to style the React components. So previously we have made use of CSS to style the React components, right? Whereas here, using the CSS in JS, we are going to use the JavaScript to style the React components. So firstly, to implement this CSS in JS, there are many third-party packages like style components, emotion, radium, and so on. So we are going to make use of style components, which is one of the popular ones using which we can achieve the CSS in JS. So what are these style components? Style components is one of the new way where we can achieve styling using JavaScript. Okay. So what do we know about components? Component is nothing but a piece of reusable code, right? We are familiar with that, right? React components are nothing but a piece of reusable code. When it comes to style components are nothing but reusable styles. Just like how using components we can reuse the code, using the style components we can reuse the styles. We'll understand this as we proceed further. So using the style components, we can achieve CSS in JS. That is, we can style the React components using JavaScript. This is a third-party package. So firstly, we have to install this third-party package. So there you can see npm install style components. With this, the style components third-party package will get installed. So let's do this first. So as we understood, right? So we are actually trying to style the React components using JavaScript. There are various advantages of this, which we are going to cover as we proceed further. So for this, we are going to make use of the style components, which is a third-party package. So firstly, we have to install it. So npm install style components. So I'm installing the style components, right? There you can see it's getting installed. So using this, we can style the React components using JavaScript. Okay. So we are done installing. So I'll just do npm start again. Let's have a look at the syntax of creating the style components. So you can see the syntax here. So firstly, we'll write const and we'll provide the style component name equal to, we'll write style dot and we'll provide the tag name. Like in case of the main heading, it would be h1. In case of the container element, it would be div. In case of paragraph element, p, and so on. So style dot and we have to provide the tag name. And within the backtext, that is the template address, we define the styles. That is a CSS property, colon, the corresponding value. And so on, we keep defining the styles within those template returns. This is the syntax of creating a style component. So now let's implement this with the help of an example. So here you can see we want to achieve this hello world. Okay, let's do this with the help of style components. So normally how do you do? Using CSS. Firstly, in the .css file, you would be writing the heading class, right? The and you can define all the stylings there like color, the font family and so on. And then in the JavaScript file, you would be importing the CSS file, and wherever you want the styling to be applied, you would provide this heading as a value to the class name attribute. Then the styling will be applied and we'll be able to see the output, right? So this is the way that you have been doing so far. Now, coming to CSS in JS. So here, firstly, we will write the style component. So there you can see we have written constant heading equal to style dot, and we'll provide the tag name, that is h1. There you can see, since we want it to be a main heading, so that would be h1. So style dot h1, and within the backticks we are defining the styles, that is the color, the font family. Okay, clear? So this is the style component. We are done creating the style component. Now, wherever we want this heading to be displayed, we are going to make use of the style component in that way. So we just write heading, and whatever text has to come in between, we'll provide that text, and then, okay, clear? So this is how we create a style component and use it. Now, let's start writing the code. So generally, the best practice is we place the style components in the style components.js file. So for each component, we create a style components.js file and we write the style components within this file. So for app component, we want to write the style component. So let's create the file for it. There you can see. And now we are using the style, which we have to import from the style components third-party package. So we are doing that. So we are importing style so that we can create and use the style components. Okay. Now coming to writing the style component, you can see here constant heading equal to style dot. Since the tag is h1, so we have provided h1 here. So dot h1, and within the backticks, we are defining the styles, that is the color and the font family. With this, we have created the heading style component. Now we want to make use of this, right? So for this, we have to first export it. So we have added this export keyword in the front, and there you can see now we can make use of the heading wherever necessary. Let's create the style component now. So as we previously understood, we generally write the style components in the style components.js file. So let me create the file first, style components.js. Now to create the style component, I have to import style. So I'm importing style from style components. And now I'll create the style component, so which is heading. So here you can see that the first letter is capital since it's a component. Now I have to write style dot and I have to provide the tag name. So we want to create a main heading. So the tag corresponding to that is h1. So I've provided h1 there. And now within the backticks, I have to provide the styling, right? So let me do that. Firstly, the color. So I have to provide the hex code. So I'm just providing the hex code here. The hex code is 0070C1. Okay. Whichever you want, you can provide that. And here we have to have a semicolon at the end. And another thing is font family. And then the font family that I want is Roboto. So I'm providing that here. Okay, I'm done with it. Clear? So this is the style component that I have created. The next thing is I have to export this so that I can make use of it. Okay, so I'm going to add the export keyword here. Okay, done. That's it, right? Simple. So I'm done with this style component, right? So let's make use of it. So exporting is done. So now I want to use this in the app component, right? So in the app.js file, I'm importing this style component, which is heading. And then wherever necessary, I can make use of this heading, right? So here instead of h1, now I would be writing heading directly. And appropriately, the styling has been applied and you can see the output. Okay, so let's do that. So now I have exported. So in the app.js file, I'm going to import this. Okay, so import, that is nothing but heading, right? So from style components.js file, right? So from /style components, I'm importing heading. So now instead of h1 and all of this, I would be directly providing this heading, right? So I'll be just replacing this with heading and similarly the end tag. That's it. Let's have a look at the output and you can see the output, and I've appropriately got the output with the corresponding style, right? Now let's inspect once. So here within the body, so here we have this heading. You can see that it is h1 and a unique class name has been generated. So generally the style components generate a unique class name based on the styling, and you can see there. Okay. So, and we were able to get this output. Okay. So we have seen this output, and then you can see when we inspect, right? So a unique class name has been generated by the style component and that has been appropriately added there. Okay. Clear? So we are done with using the style component and we were able to achieve the output. Now let's add a button. There you can see we have this click button, right? Let's add this button using the style component. So firstly, what do? We write the style component for it, right? So there you can see the style component corresponding to the button. So it's a custom button equal to style dot, the tag name is button, so dot button. And then within the backticks, we have defined the styles, right? There you can see the styles that we have defined. And we have to add all of this in the style components.js file. Okay, and then we want to add this button. So we are going to import this style component. So you can see we have imported custom button. And then wherever we want this button, we can make use of this style component. So below the heading, we want the button. So we have mentioned it there. Okay. Apart from this, apart from the styling, if we have any HTML attributes that we want to specify, we can directly specify here. There you can see we want to specify type equal to button. So you can directly write it here. Okay, clear? Now let's add this button. So firstly, below the hello world, I want the button to be displayed. So for that, firstly, I have to create a style component for it. So let me do that. Export constant. So it's a custom button. So I'm giving that as the style component name, style dot, and the tag name is button. And now within the backticks, I have to define the styling. Okay. So the styling is already provided to you in the resources.md file. So you can have a look at the preview there. So I just want this, right? So I'm just adding these styles here. So I'm done adding it. So now I have this custom button, which is a style component. So now where do I want it? Below the hello world heading. So let's go to app.js. Let's import the custom button. So custom button. Okay. Now below the heading, I want this custom button to be displayed, right? So let me just update this here. And we'll close this. Okay, below the heading, we want the custom button. So I'm going to write this as custom button. And the text that has to be displayed is click. So I'm going to mention that here. Apart from this, there's some HTML attribute that we want to add. Okay, so that is type equal to button. So I can directly write it here. Okay, in this manner. HTML attributes or the JSX attributes which we want to specify, you can directly write it here as type equal to button and so on to that style component, and it will be appropriately applied. So now let's have a look at the output, and you can see here we have the button. It is as simple as this. Okay, so you just have to directly write the style component in the style components.js. You have to import it into the app.js, and you can specify directly wherever you want it to appear. Okay, clear? So we are done adding this button, and we were able to see this output. Now, let's say we want to add another button. So it's like an outline styling, right? So let's say we want to add this outline button. So let's see how to do it. So firstly, what do? We add this style component, right? So the custom button that we have added, so that is the styling corresponding to it. And coming to the outline button that we want to add, this is the styling that we want to achieve. Now, if we compare these two, what is the difference? Just the color and the background color are changing, and all the remaining things are the same, right? Only these two, the color and the background color, are changing. Now, do we have to write another style component for this? Can we do something better? In CSS, obviously, you have to write separate classes for the custom button, separate class for the outline button, yes. But in style components, do we have any way? Yes. Using style components, as I mentioned, we can reuse the styles. Okay, so for this, we are going to pass the props to the style components. So whatever are the changes, we can pass them as props to the style components. And based on that, we can just make use of a single style component to achieve the custom button and also to achieve the outline button. So let's see how to do it. Okay, so the syntax of making use of props in the style component is this. So within the dollar, so we'll have a callback to which the props will be passed as an argument, and you can write the code there, the JavaScript code within that. Okay, so this is the syntax. Now, we want the color and background color to be passed as props because they are only the changes that are occurring. So let's pass them as props to the custom button where we want to achieve the solid type of button. Another button is like an outline button. So for both of them, I'm going to pass the corresponding color and the background color as props. And at the style component, so based on the props, I'm going to specify the color and background color. There you can see, right? The props have been passed as an argument. So props.color would be the color, right? So directly I'm assigning the props.color. Similarly, in case of background color, it would be props.bg color, and we are assigning that. It is as simple as this. So what we have done here, we have just made use of the single style component, that is custom button, and we are reusing this to achieve two different types of buttons, right? The solid button and the outline button. We were able to achieve both of the buttons using a single style component. So we are reusing the style component to achieve different types of buttons, right? This is the advantage. Now let's do this. So as we understood, just like how we have the solid button, similarly we want a outline button here. So let's achieve that using the same style component. So we have the style component and the only change is the color and the background color, and all the other things remain the same, right? So let's do that. So for that, we are going to make use of props. So we are going to pass the color, okay? So and the background color, BG color, as props, okay? So we'll appropriately specify, sorry, there's no comma. So we'll appropriately specify the colors here. So in case of the solid button, we want it to be the white, okay? And in case of the background color, we want it to be blue. So we are providing the hex codes corresponding to it, okay? Clear? So now, similar to this, we want an outline button also. So we are going to make use of the same style component, just we are going to change the colors and the background colors, okay? So this is actually white, okay? And this has to be the blue that we want to achieve. Okay, clear? Now, in the style component, we are going to access these props. So the color is changing. So there we have to access the props. So firstly, we write $ and then the curly braces. Within that, we can write the JavaScript code. So for the callback function, the props will be passed as an argument and you can write the JavaScript code here. We just directly want to set the props.color as the color. So I'm just specifying that here. Similarly, in case of background color, we want to assign the props.bg color, right? So it would be BG color. That's it. Simple, right? So for the style component, we are passing the props and using the props, we are assigning the color and background color. So what we are able to do? We are able to make use of the same style component, the custom button, and achieve two different buttons of different styling, right? Let's have a look at the output. You can see here, there are two different buttons. They have different styling, but we were able to achieve this using the same style component just by passing the props, right? We were able to dynamically change the styling using the style components. Okay, clear? So this is the advantage of using style components. In case of using CSS, you have to define separate classes for the solid button and outline button. Whereas in case of style components, we can just make use of a single style component and achieve different stylings. Okay. So we have seen this output. This one point here, the color, the background color, which is related to styling, is being used in the JavaScript code in the component, right? So which is actually part of styling, the hex codes and all of this, but we are passing that as a prop and all this, right? So it's actually not a good way of maintaining the styles information in the .js file instead of having it in the style component.js. So what we can do? Here, what we can do is, we can pass the type of the button to the style components, and based on the type of the button, we can appropriately assign the colors. This is nothing but called as conditional styling. Let's understand this. Instead of passing the hex codes, the different stylings as props, we can pass the type of the button as prop, and based on that, we can assign the colors. Let's see how to do that. That is nothing but conditional styling. Let's see. So here, when it comes to conditional styling, so we'll have a particular condition, and based on the condition, if it is true, we will assign one value. If it is false, we'll assign another value. Okay. So in our case, so the first button that we are displaying, it's not an outline button. So we have set the outline equal to false. And for another button, we have set the outline equal to true, right? Now, based on this outline prop, right? If the props.outline is true, right, then we have one color to be displayed, and if it is false, we have another color to be displayed. There you can see, right? Props.outline is the condition. If it is true, the blue color will be displayed. That is the first hex code. If it is false, then the white color will be displayed. Similarly, in case of the background color. So what we have achieved with this, right? So here the advantage is, rather than specifying the hex codes and all of this in the .js, app.js file where we have the logic, we have the component related logic. So instead of having the styling inside that, we have moved the styling into the style components. This is a better way of managing, right? So that is what we have achieved using the conditional styling. Okay, let's do this now. So as we can see here that in the React component where we write the component logic, there we have this styling also, right? Which is actually not a good practice. So we want to move this styling into the style components.js file. So for that, what we have planned to do is, so as we understood, instead of passing the colors, we'll just pass the type of the button. Like firstly, the first button that we want to display is not an outline. So we'll set outline as false. And the second button is actually an outline. Okay. So I'm going to set the outline as true. Okay. I have passed this. Now, based on the outline, we will assign the colors here. Okay. So we have the props, right? So we have props.outline. So if the props.outline is true, then what is the color that has to be displayed? The blue one, right? I'm going to assign that hex code. So in case it is false, then we want it to be white. Done. So similarly, even in case of the background color, so we are going to add the same conditional styling. That is based on a condition, we are assigning the styling. That's the reason it's called the conditional styling. So in this case, we want it to be white, okay? And in this case, we want it to be blue, okay? So I'm mentioning that here. That's it, simple, right? So now what we have done, we have moved the whole hex codes, the styling part of it into the style components.js. We just have passed the type of the button, whether it's an outline or not, right? And still we have the same output, okay? So this is actually a better way of writing, of separating the styles and the logic into two separate parts. Like the styles will be in the style component.js and the logic will be in the app.js or whichever component we are dealing with, okay? Clear? So here you can see this and we have achieved this, right? So there's another point here, right? So here we have specified outline equal to false, outline equal to true. So it's actually a Boolean value, right? So here we can make use of Boolean attributes. We can pass this outline as a Boolean attribute. If you don't specify outline, it will be considered as a Boolean attribute with the value as false. If you specify that, it would be a Boolean attribute with the value as true. Okay, this is a better optimization. Okay, let's do that. So instead of specifying outline equal to false, outline equal to true, so the better way is, so we can make this outline a Boolean attribute. So if it has to be an outline button, so we'll just specify outline. So if it is not, then we won't specify here, okay? So the advantage is, so you need not write equal to true, equal to false. It will become a Boolean attribute. So for this particular button, since we haven't specified outline, it means that outline is a false, right? So it's a solid button. So in case of this, we have specified outline. It means that it's an outline button. So the outline related styling will be applied. Okay. So we just have optimized and you can see the output. Still it's the same. Okay. So in case of Boolean values, if you're passing the button type and in case it's of a Boolean value, you can make it as a Boolean attribute. Okay. So we are done with this and we were able to see this output, right? Now let's understand the advantages of style components. We are already familiar with using CSS to style the React components. Then why are we learning about these style components? What are the advantages of style components? Let's understand about them. The major advantage is we can reuse the styles by passing props. So we wanted to achieve a solid button and an outline button. And for both of these, we have made use of a single style component that is custom button. By passing props, we were able to achieve both the styles, right? That's a major advantage. That is, we can reuse the styles by passing the props. Another advantage is, generally when we use CSS, we have to ensure that each and every class name that we define and is unique, right? You can see an example there. So we have two components, component A and component B. In the .css file of component A and component B, so we have button. There are two different classes, okay? We have used the same class name button in the component A.css file and component B.css file, okay? And now, when we make use of this button, the expected output is, in case of component A, we want a blue button, and in case of component B, we want an orange button. But when you look at the output, both will be orange. The reason is, we have made use of the same class name, right? That's the problem here. So the same class name, that is button, is being used for both component A and component B. So the class has been overridden and the same styling has been applied for both the components. So here the problem is, we have to ensure that the class name that we provide, the CSS class name that we provide, is unique across all the components, across all the .css files. But whereas in case of style components, we need not worry about that, because the style components itself will generate unique class names. You can see the example here. So in case of component A style component, you can see there we have button, and even in case of component B style components, there is button. And we have made use of it in component A and component B. And the expected is they should have different stylings, and the actual is also we have different stylings. So in this case, we have used the same style component name, that is button. But here the styling is different, because internally the style components will generate unique class names. There you can see, right? So for button 1, for button 2, there are unique class names, right? So that's the reason here the styling didn't conflict and we were able to achieve different stylings, though we have used the same style component name. So the style components is addressing the issue of using the class names, okay? In case of CSS, we have to ensure that each and every class name that you write is unique. Whereas in case of the style components, you need not worry about it. You can use the same style component name in different components. Okay, clear? So that's another added advantage of using style components. And another advantage is readability. So you can see when we use CSS for styling, so we have div, class name equal to main container and so on. Whereas in case of CSS in JS, so we have main container, heading and so on. It's very easy to understand about what each component does, right? So that's the advantage of using CSS in JS. In this way, there are many advantages of using style components to style the React components. Okay, clear? So we have understood about style components in today's session. So to achieve CSS in JS, one way is using the style components. So we have seen about passing props to the style components and also about the conditional styling. And we understood the advantages of this also. So the